GoDaddy is our sponsor for our coverage from OpenStack in Barcelona. Our theme for the conference, diversity and inclusion in the OpenStack ecosystem. Learn more about GoDaddy's diversity efforts at godaddy.com. Hey, it's Alex Williams, the new stack for our first interview from OpenStack Barcelona here with Ruby Liu. Hi, Ruby. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Great, great. Well, I just wanted to, sit down with you. We were talking to Shahida, who we work with over at GoDaddy, and she recommended you highly as someone to talk to. And I'm just curious about just learning about yourself and kind of the projects you're working on at OpenStack.
Okay, well, I've been with OpenStack for about 3 years, and mostly working on just one project, Ironic, which is bare metal provisioning.
And so so tell us about the process of working, on a project, and like who you're working with, and a little bit about, the day-to-day.
Okay, so I work for Intel, but I basically work with people upstream in the OpenStack community. So my day-to-day activity is basically turn my computer on, look at my mail, get on IRC, see who's there, sort of monitor the chat if anybody needs help, and I do a lot of reviewing. So a lot of patches come in. We have sort of a list of priorities in terms of the features we want to get in, landed in a certain cycle, and so I go through my list of high priority things, I review things, I get in touch with people, we discuss things, and then there's a bit of time that I spend with actually the Intel company that I work for, and Intel is interested in certain features as well that align with the community, so we discuss things like that. What
are the features that you're working on now that we're seeing in this release and what's coming up? Okay,
so the summit is the place where we actually sit down and decide what the priorities are going to be for the upcoming release, which is the Okata release.
Right.
So I can't guarantee for sure, but we're going to have a session to decide what the priorities are, but I think the main priorities are going to be getting more networking features in, like port groups. What else? Rolling upgrades is a big thing now. We're trying to get a lot of projects to be able to do rolling upgrades so people can have their OpenStack running while they upgrade to a new version of OpenStack.
Okay. So what is your history with open source? I mean, we were talking a little bit about this before the conversation.
Well, so I had no open source experience until I started OpenStack, and that happened. I used to work for Yahoo, and it was, we're using OpenStack, and then Ruby, here's this new project starting up, Ironic. We're going to be interested in doing bare metal provisioning. Could you help them out? And that was sort of my intro to open source and OpenStack.
So what's your background then? What is your technical background?
I've got a master's degree in computer science. I'm a software developer. I've been doing computing for a few decades, I guess.
How do you find them working in open source? I mean, compared to like the work that you had done previously.
I guess for anything you do, there are pros and cons. So I think it's great that there are so many companies involved, that you're working with so many people, and a diverse set of people from all these different countries, and that you're working, no face-to-face for most part, except for these summits. Whereas in a company, you're working with a few people, and so the pros with a company are, these people. You work with them every day, you've met them, you're all working towards the same goal. But the projects are not as big as OpenStack. But the upstream part is you have all these different projects in OpenStack, and it takes a little longer to get things done, to get features landed. We don't typically have one person who's designated as the architect that can sort of dictate, say, okay, this is the way to go. So it's more of a democracy. So it means it takes things longer to do because you have to have more discussions and make decisions in a more democratic way.
Right. Which again, there's pros and cons to to democracy, right?
That's right, as Americans know.
Yeah. So with what are some of the challenges for like how you like take care of patches, for example?
Oh, well, so, the upstream community is more diverse, I think, than in a company. In a company, you can interview people, you could decide who you want to hire, and there's a bit more control over the direction things go in. In the upstream community, you get patches from all sorts of companies. You get patches from people where English is not their native language, and kudos to them for actually knowing how to speak more than one language and to write in another language besides programming. But it also means that the quality varies depending on the person. And that's hard because you get a lot of people contributing and you don't know who these people are, and you have to do due diligence in terms of reviewing, making sure it fits in with the existing paradigm, design, architect of your software, and trying to do it all in a professional manner.
Right. So there's so there's a lot of people working on these different projects. Then how do things get assigned then? Meaning like making sure that people will follow through on things, or do you just really have no guarantee on that?
For the most part, there is no guarantee. I mean, there are certain companies that some of the bigger companies are committed to OpenStack. They have people that are around. As you work in OpenStack, you get to know people. You get to know people who've been around for, if they're sticking around for a month or 6 months or a year, you get to know them, and you sort of learn that you can rely on them because they're going to be around. Although company priorities do take precedence over upstream priorities. We all work for companies, and when the company says you need to look at this, we need to drop what we're doing upstream. So things do get delayed sometimes because somebody who said they're going to get something done can't for other reasons. If it's a priority, it's a feature that a bunch of people are interested in, hopefully we tend to have more than one person from the same company who knows it and can sort of take over. But there's sort of a delay there in the sense of the people writing the code and the people reviewing the code and the iterations between that.
So take us through the management, from your perspective on how these projects are run. So, there's all these. There's anyone who basically can, there's the contributors out there. What are the different levels of hierarchy inside the projects?
Well, it's not like there's that much hierarchy. So basically, you have everybody's a contributor, and then you have these people called cores.
Right.
And everybody can review, everybody can sort of vote on the patch and say they like it or they don't like it. In terms of, there's some more changes I'd like to see. And you can score it on a +1, +2, -1, -2. The cores are the only ones that have the power to use the 2s, and they're the only ones that can approve something. And typically in most projects, you need 2 cores to give the +2, and then a core has to approve it. I don't know, I see it as basically just one hierarchy, I guess, and the cores of people tend to be people who have been around, who know the software, who understand it, and just to make sure that, yes, this really does fit in and it won't break anything.
So the cores, how many people are in the cores then?
That varies depending on the project.
How about in Ironic?
So Ironic, as an umbrella, actually has a bunch of sub-projects. There's sort of Ironic, and there's something called IPA and another thing called Bifrost or Bifrost, and Ironic Inspector, and each of those little projects have their own cores. And so some of these projects have just 2 cores or 3 cores because they're really small projects and there are only maybe 4 or 5 main contributors. Ironic itself, I think, has about 9 or 10 cores, but I'm not totally sure. I don't count.
Mm-hmm. And so then these are the people then who will do the patch reviews and such.
Most of them, yes, for the most part, will review. I mean, to be a core, there's sort of a guideline that on average you should review 3 patches a day, sort of thing. Some people do more, some people do less.
Right. So how do you become a core member?
You become a core member by actually contributing, by reviewing, by showing you have an understanding of the project. And the PTLs, the program tech leads, or one of the cores may say, hey, you know, so-and-so, what do you think of so-and-so? They've been around for so many months. They seem to have a really good handle on Ironic. I really like the reviews they've been doing. They've been giving good reviews, good comments, good suggestions. I think they're core material. What do you guys think? And so we sort of have this voting thing where the cores will say yes, 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 and typically it's yes, unless they're not core material, and then the person gets to become core.
Are you a member of the core team?
Yes, I'm a core.
Okay. So how long have you been doing that?
Been a core?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember.
A while.
A while. Yeah, over 2 years, I think.
So tell us more then about, you know, what you're working on. So tell us about Ironic. Give us an update where we are with Ironic. It's a relatively new project, isn't it?
Well, it's probably about 3 years old because I started on Ironic.
Well, it's not that old.
It's not that. No,
that's
there are a lot of new
pretty well
projects now.
established. Yeah. And so tell us about Ironic. You know, a little bit more about it, and you know what you're seeing its role in OpenStack is, you know, evolving. You know, as we're starting to see OpenStack change quite a bit. You know, we're starting to see more discussions about Kubernetes. We're starting to see more discussions about, you know, containers being used inside OpenStack. Tell us where, you know, where Ironic fits into that story.
Okay, well, you know, OpenStack started with VMs,
right?
To some degree. There are certain applications where VMs are not desirable, and that's where bare metal. Like, there are certain projects where they actually want to sort of own their own computer.
Right.
And that's where Ironic comes in with bare metal provisioning. And then there's a container world where it's better to use containers instead of a VM because that sort of gives you a bit of more of a jump start into doing work.
Right.
So there's those three different ways that companies are looking at to provide computing resources to people.
Right. And so so the container story within that, you know, what's the context for the work that you're doing? Is there a context?
Well, the work that I'm doing is bare metal, so it's not the containers at all.
There's no container.
Except that
You
containers.
can run containers on bare metal.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. Right.
So is there an integration there of discussions or no?
Yeah. So some of the other projects are using Ironic.
Okay, I see. All right. Okay.
And there is we're working on a sort of a standalone Ironic that you can deploy Ironic without the rest of OpenStack.
Okay.
For certain applications that just want the Ironic part to deploy bare metal, but they don't want the whole infrastructure of OpenStack.
Okay. Okay. So that would then allow them to isolate, you know, kind of a cluster, for example, on bare metal.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Is that a real big interest now, or?
It is. I mean, personally, I am more interested in Ironic within the OpenStack umbrella, using Nova and Glance and Swift and Cinder. But yes, there is. When we started Ironic, it was totally, you know, as part of OpenStack. But as time went on, there has been interest in having just Ironic, and that's why we do have now a way of deploying Ironic.
So bare metal has it made a comeback? Where do you see bare metal's kind of like place in the ecosystem right now in terms of interest level?
You know, that's a good question. I think that for certain customers, they need bare metal. They need the computing power for high performance computing, for security reasons. I have also seen in the past where legacy projects won't run on VMs, or people are still a little tentative about going to VMs and sort of sharing a computer with other projects. And so I see bare metals as one way for them to slowly get into the OpenStack VM world or container world, like sort of a small step. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What's your personal interest in it? What is it that interests you about this work?
Ironic in particular, or
Ironic in particular, then OpenStack. Yeah.
Well, Ironic, it was mostly because that was a project I was asked to work on. But I find it interesting because the interest is there. You know, companies want to use it. The features, people want to use it, and there's so much to know about actual hardware.
Yeah,
to link
yeah.
and stuff like that. So there's always more features, and there's always more things we need to do to it that we want to do.
And there's a real kind of, as we see more scale out there, the hardware software integration story is even more interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you find interesting about it?
I actually like the name Ironic.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Ruby, I just want to thank you for coming by. I just want to have a quick chat and just learn a little bit more about your work, and we're just trying to get a better kind of understanding of how OpenStack is working these days, and and what's making it tick, so to speak, and getting an idea and the people involved and how they're participating. So appreciate you coming by.
Thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, you bet.
It was fun. Thanks.
GoDaddy is our sponsor for our coverage from OpenStack in Barcelona. Our theme for the conference, diversity and inclusion in the OpenStack ecosystem. Learn more about GoDaddy's diversity efforts at godaddy.com.